Welcome to Season 3 of the Armchair Athletes on CMRU.ca.
We're here to talk the 4 major American sports leagues. Your favorite sports show on CMRU.ca, hosted by Terrell, Taylor, Clayton, and Will.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to an all-new episode of the Armchair Athletes with Clayton,
Terrell,
Taylor,
and Will.
Alrighty, so at the time of this recording, it is currently the morning after Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Finals, and 2 mornings after Game 1 of the NBA Finals. Actually, I should say the morning, if I'm not mistaken. So I think we'll kick off with some NHL, but first I just want to run the gauntlet here before I forget. If you want to go follow us on social media, Instagram at the Armchair Athletes had a major announcement on there earlier this week. TikTok at Armchair Athletes. Go watch my Cup final preview on the TikTok. For whatever reason, it wouldn't upload to the Instagram. We're having problems uploading it today. Honestly, I'm going to be honest. That video is probably my favorite playoff preview that we've done so far. I put a lot of effort into that, as I should. It's the Cup finals. So, and then Twitter or X at Chair Athletes. Terrell, any highlights from the Twitter this week?
Not really. I think I'll save one of them for the Bozo comment of the week because I think it would apply there.
And then our YouTube at the Armchair Athletes 196. 196, that's the amount of players in the new NHL reality series that's dropping this fall, it seems. They've got a lot of guys on it. And I guess we'll open up with the NHL.
Did they name that series? Did they put a name on the series, or did they just drop the trailer without a name?
They dropped the trailer without a name.
That's so weird.
Great marketing.
Yeah, it's like that's just so not normal.
The NHL's marketing. So, I guess, yeah, so we'll open up with the news. So yes, it's the end of a playoff round, but I've decided that I'm going to wait to do the winners and losers till after the Cup final. And the reason for that is because, like, if I did them right now, I think it's pretty obvious who the winners and losers are. Winner, Edmonton Oilers. Winner, Florida Panthers. Loser, New York Rangers. Loser, Dallas Stars. And so for the final winners and losers of the season, I'm going to be doing it for the entire NHL season. So you can probably guess that the big-time winner will be whoever wins the Stanley Cup, probably. But past that, I guess you'll have to find out in 2 or 3 weeks, depending on when the Cup final ends. So to start off, though, we still got the news, so we're always having a good time on this show when we got the news. Oilers and Panthers, they're in the Stanley Cup final. It was confirmed last week. The Panthers, they won Game 1 yesterday by a score of 3-0, and both teams came flying out of the gates, but Florida got on the board first thanks to a nice assist from Alexander Barkov to Carter Verhaeghe, who, like I said a few weeks ago on the show, playoff performer, scores another big goal, the first goal of the Stanley Cup Finals. And Florida would add on to that lead in the second period. Evan Rodriguez left wide open out in front of the goal. He put one top shelf past Stuart Skinner to make it 2-0. And then Florida added an empty net goal for the 3-0 victory. And I will say, guys, Edmonton had their chances in this game. They outshot Florida 32-18. But Edmonton, I think it was Connor McDavid after the game said that the hockey gods were against them this time because they were certainly on Edmonton's side in Game 6 against Dallas, where the Oilers were badly outshot in that game, but managed to win Game 6 with 10 shots on goal. Stuart Skinner was great in that game, and he's had a very up-and-down playoffs as well. There's been games where it's been horrible, maybe lost the game for the Oilers, and then there's been games that he's stolen, such as I think it was Game 4 against the LA Kings where they were badly outshot as well. So I'm not sure which Skinner we're going to see over this series, probably a bit of both. I didn't think he was bad in yesterday's game. I thought goals, there was nothing he really could have done. 2 guys left wide open out in front of the goal and kind of had a lot of net to shoot at on those 2 goals. I think it was the defensive breakdowns that led to those 2 goals. But for Florida, Bobrovsky was unreal in goal yesterday. Made some incredible saves, made a couple of nice saves on some breakaways. The one on Nugent Hopkins was great when Nugent Hopkins went to his backhand, made the move towards Bobrovsky's left pad. Bobrovsky still managed to make the save. He had some nice saves as well. And then there was a breakaway from him as well that he turned away. So, yeah, 5-star effort from Bobrovsky last night. Alexander Barkov, I talked about this in the preview yesterday. He had that nice assist on the goal from Verhaeghe to open up the game. But I think he's the most important player for Florida in this series aside from Bobrovsky. And that's because he's going to be tasked with shutting down the top players from Edmonton, namely Connor McDavid. And Barkov's taken off on that role all throughout the playoffs, did a great job of shutting down Nikita Kucherov in round 1, who was the NHL's Art Ross winner this year. Shut down Pastrnak in round 2, shut down Panarin in the conference finals, and now he has probably the toughest job of them all of shutting down Connor McDavid, but held him off the score sheet last night, and a large part of that was also Sergei Bobrovsky, like I said. So the Panthers, they executed their game plan in game 1. They were outplayed, but still managed to get in, which is what matters in the end. Panthers are up 1-0 in the series. Do you guys have any thoughts on game 1, what we saw last night?
It was pretty dominant for Florida. I mean, you kind of talk all playoffs about the Oilers' power play.
Yeah.
And they just had nothing. And even the opportunities that they did have, like that one, I think it was like a rebound out to Nuge, and he had a wide open net and just sailed it.
Yeah.
That's just kind of like a whole summary of their power play last night.
Yeah, they've had, like you said, Will, an incredible power play and just weren't able to connect last night. Had their chances, but just couldn't bury one in the back of the goal. And I want to talk more so just, I guess, for this entire Cup final preview type of thing. I think Florida going in this year, so last year in the Cup final, Florida, I talked about the preview on the TikTok, so go check it out. But I said that Florida going into last year's Cup final was the Cinderella team. And I'm not going to say that they were just happy to be there. I don't think that any team making the Cup final, I don't think is necessarily just happy to be there. But they weren't expected to win it. They weren't expected to make it that far. And on the opposite side of that Cup final last year, you had the Golden Knights, who they themselves were the 23 Florida Panthers previously in the 2018 Stanley Cup final, where they played the much more experienced Washington Capitals. The Capitals ran over Vegas in that final. It was a 5-game series. A couple of the games were close, but it was clear who the better team was in that Stanley Cup final. Whereas last year, the Golden Knights were in a different role. They were the more experienced team going in, and anything less than a Stanley Cup for that team would have been considered a failure. Golden Knights end up winning against the Panthers, who weren't expected to be there. Now this year, the Panthers are in that role that the Golden Knights were in last year. Anything less than a Stanley Cup for this Panthers team, I think they'll look at it as a disappointment. You don't want to lose 2 finals in a row. Like, I get that you're happy with those deep playoff runs, but man, it's ask the Buffalo Bills of the 90s. Like, you make 4 Super Bowls in a row, and it means nothing in the end if you don't come away with a ring. I think that's the mindset of the Panthers this year. Also kind of, I guess, the Dodgers a few years ago in the MLB, but they did eventually win one. They lost 2 finals in a row, but won one a couple years later. Maybe a Mickey Mouse ring, but I guess it's still a ring. But yeah, no, Florida's in that opposite role from last year's final. So they're now the more experienced team. But the question is, are the Oilers that Cinderella team like last year? And I have to lean towards no. They've had the Cup expectations since the start of the season. Now, yes, horrible start to the season. They were almost getting to be perennial ultimate losers on this show. But they turned it around. We've known since about January or February this team was going to make the playoffs and that they were expecting a deep playoff run. They had a 16-game win streak earlier in this season. This team is expected also, I think, to win the Stanley Cup this year. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic in the Stanley Cup final, and one that we haven't seen since 2022 with the Avalanche and the Lightning, where I think both teams in that final were also expecting win the cup that year. And it's one that we often don't see. Like, you look for years there. There's usually a team that's not expected to be in the final and one that's expected and usually ends up winning it. So I think it's a very interesting dynamic in the final this year. Now for, I guess, individual players or coaches, I guess, from these teams. Paul Maurice, he made the comment earlier this week that he's been doing this for 30 years, so he better win at least one. I like that mentality. And I was also going to say, I mentioned this in the final preview, but if Florida wins this series, I think it means a lot for Sergei Bobrovsky. I think he automatically becomes a first ballot Hall of Famer, and I think he might already be a Hockey Hall of Famer. 2 Vezina trophies. There's not many guys in the NHL history that can say they've accomplished just that, but also now 2 finals appearances as the starting goalie. A huge accomplishment already, but if he wins a Stanley Cup, there's no doubt about it, he'll be going in on his first year of eligibility. Now for the other side of it, if the Oilers win the Cup, Connor McDavid, I think, officially enters that tier of best players to ever play the game. Now, his numbers already speak for themselves. I probably sound like a broken record saying this on the TikTok, but there's only 3 guys in NHL history that have won more Art Ross trophies than McDavid. Gretzky, Lemieux, and Howe. And those 3 players are on most people's Mount Rushmore for the entire NHL. So I think McDavid's already kind of in an all-time great, but I think if McDavid ends his career without a Stanley Cup, that's going to be used against him. No matter what his stats are, it's going to be used against him because all the greats have won Stanley Cups. Like Orr's won one, Gretzky, Howe, Crosby, Lemieux, they've all won it. So I think McDavid needs one to be in that conversation, or else it will be used against him, despite hockey being a team game. And I mentioned this on the TikTok. I want to know your guys' opinion on this. I said if McDavid wins the Stanley Cup, by the end of his career, I think we'll have, in terms of the GOAT conversation, a similar conversation to basketball with Jordan and LeBron, where a lot of, I think, the older hockey fans will be saying that it's Gretzky, he's a winner and all this, but I think that the younger generation will be saying Connor McDavid to the talent that he has and the numbers that he's put up in a completely different area or different era that Gretzky was playing in.
I think the numbers are so much different in this conversation, though, than LeBron and Jordan. I think LeBron and Jordan are a lot closer in comparative stats than Gretzky and McDavid right now.
Yeah.
Like, Gretzky is the farthest ahead in points and goals by a landslide right now. So I think unless there was some way that McDavid could make it a lot closer, I think people are still going to say Gretzky because the numbers are so different. Whereas LeBron and Jordan kind of, I think, are a bit closer.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and at least like either 2 of them have something that they're better at than each other. Whereas Gretzky right now is kind of just leading him in everything. So
and I don't think that McDavid will come close to Gretzky in points. I think that's an unbeatable record at this point. But I think that for McDavid, like, he played in a lower scoring era. So if he reaches even 18 or 1900 points, I think he's still in that conversation.
Depends how long he plays, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Will and Terrell, did you guys have anything to say about that?
I was going to say the same thing as Taylor. I think it's the era, like between, especially I think the biggest difference between those two is I think Gretzky's and McDavid's eras are a lot different than LeBron's and Jordan's were, where the level of difficulty for Gretzky is lower than I think it was for McDavid. And like you said, much, much lower scoring for McDavid as well. But yeah, I just think that Gretzky's gap in like everything is so large compared to Jordan and LeBron that I just don't know if the same argument can be made really. But I think it's fundamentally the same thing where it's like a newer, more talented player comes along and accomplishes all this stuff. And unfortunately, he's going to get the same thing. Like you said, if he doesn't win a ring, that's going to be held against him. It was held against LeBron for the longest part of his career up until he won that first championship. I think LeBron was eventually able to overcome a lot of that. And I think anyone who at this point doesn't at least think he's the second best player of all time is just I don't know whether they're delusional or they just don't want to admit it, whatever. Whereas I think with McDavid, you could make arguments for other players where, like I said, with LeBron, I think it's pretty much inarguable that he's at least the second best.
Yeah, that's a good point as well, because you do have Lemieux in that conversation too. I guess we'll continue on here. I wrote it here because I've kind of gotten this narrative out of reading the comments on social media. I have the Florida Panthers are Canada's team because you've been hearing all this Oilers are Canada's team thing, which I think is just dumb. I hate the whole America's or Canada's team. Dallas Cowboys aren't America's team. There's 32 teams in America. The only team that is America's team is Team USA. That's how I view it. But I wrote it down here just kind of as a counterpoint to the whole Oilers or Canada's team thing. Because I'm telling you right now, most Calgary Flames fans are not cheering for the Edmonton Oilers. And I've noticed it too. I think there's, for whatever reason, there seems to be a dislike between Leafs and Oilers fans too. Leafs fans are on the Panthers side. Canucks are on Panthers side heavily. They've been more vocal than anyone just because of the playoff rivalry from this year. So I've been seeing a lot of pushback from other teams about it. So yeah, I just find that whole Canada's and America's team thing is just dumb. Next, so past the Cup final news now. Unless you guys have anything you wanted to add on that.
I don't think so. I do completely agree. I think it is really funny that they tried to get the Canada's team thing. Even I think Gretzky came up with a quote and said that the majority of Canadians will be cheering for the Oilers. And I just don't think that's the case at all. All of Calgary, I think, would rather have the city explode than have the Oilers win a championship. So,
man, I understand Flames fans not wanting to support Oilers because the rivalry is such a real thing. And I understand Canucks fans maybe not cheering for him because you just got beat by him. But I don't understand why other Canadian teams aren't supporting Edmonton.
I think at least part of it is that I don't know if anyone wants any other Canadian team other than their own to be the first one to win in so long. So it's we have to hate whoever's in there right now, in this case, the Oilers.
That's exactly it. My thing is do you think that the Philadelphia Flyers were cheering for the Pittsburgh Penguins to win the Stanley Cup a number of years ago to bring the cup back to Pennsylvania? No, especially not Philly. They're even more hardcore than probably some of their fan bases we just said. But the Rangers wouldn't cheer for the Islanders to bring the cup back to New York. So I think there's that dynamic, and like Terrell said, there is, I think, that thing they don't. Each team wants to be the first one to bring it back to Canada. But now I'm not saying that if you do support the Edmonton Oilers that you're wrong. Cheer for whoever you want to cheer for. But I think that that's just kind of why a lot of people aren't supporting the Oilers.
Yeah, that's fair.
I think maybe the one team who could come out of Canada and not have any haters would maybe be the Winnipeg Jets. But even then, I feel because they're in the Western Conference, if they played Vancouver or Edmonton, they'd probably still get hate from those fans. Right? So, I guess we'll move on to the other news. First piece of news here, Utah, their 6 options for a team. They've narrowed it down to the hockey club. Absolutely not. I'm just going to get rid of that one right away.
That's one of the options that it was narrowed down to.
I think it's so dumb.
Yikes.
But if they do that, they're gonna pick an actual name next year. It's like Washington Commanders.
Why not pick an actual name right now? That just makes sense.
They're doing a hockey club for this next season because they want to take a year, I guess, to get the branding right, which I actually don't have a problem with for a year because, you've seen with the Washington Commanders where they played as the Washington football team. And I made this, by the way, I want to shout out Coast to Coast podcast, also on cmru.ca. I got to be a guest on that show last week. Thanks to Alex for having me on the show. And I just wanted to, I made this point on the show that I'm okay with the Utah Hockey Club for a year or two if it means that they get the branding right at the end, because you had the Washington football team for a couple of years and they got it completely wrong in the end with the Commanders. It's the worst team name in football, and I can't think of a worse one, maybe, unless you guys can. But like, I'm okay with it for a year if it means that in another year or two we get some absolutely unreal jerseys for whether it's the Yeti or, and I guess I'll say the other names here. The Yeti, which I think is the obvious name. The Venom, just I'm not a fan of that. It was my lacrosse team name here in Strathmore, and nothing against the Strathmore Venom, but like I associate it with lacrosse more than I do hockey, I think. I don't know. It's just, yeah. The Blizzard, which I think they could actually do some cool branding with, maybe get a partnership with Dairy Queen, which is what Alex said last week on Coast to Coast. The Mammoth, which I'm just not a fan, I guess. And then the Outlaws. Which one do you guys like? My favorite's got to be Blizzard or Yeti.
Yeah, I like Yeti.
Yeti.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the Yeti. I think the Outlaw, that wouldn't be a bad name either. Utah Outlaws. Like, kind of rolls off the tongue, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's true.
I think they could do. You guys are aware of the Brooks Bandits, AJHL. They've got cool. They've got very awesome logo and jerseys. I think that the Utah Outlaws could do something similar to that, and I'd be excited for that. Now for the next piece of news, the Four Nations face-off schedule has been released. That will be taking place in place of the All-Star weekend next year. Games will be played in Montreal and Boston. I'm excited for it, even though I've got a reason why I wouldn't be down here, but I'm excited for it in that we're going to see, I guess, somewhat best on best hockey for the first time since 2014. I'm excited for that. Or 2016 it was, the World Cup of Hockey. Canada and the USA will play the round-robin game in Montreal. I think that's going to be an incredible atmosphere. And then we've got the gold medal game will be played in Boston. And I also think that is going to be an incredible atmosphere. And I think that's the right call. Because here's the thing, is that the last time they had that World Cup of Hockey, it was in Toronto. And Canada's had a lot of, I guess, international hockey tournaments over the last number of years. They've hosted like half the World Juniors over the last decade. They've hosted like crazy amount of those. So I'm okay with having an international tournament elsewhere. I would like to see it honestly in Europe, but like I said, they're in Boston and Montreal. And honestly, as cool as it would be to see Canada win the gold medal on home ice, would it not be absolutely electric for Canada to walk into the TD Garden in Boston and beat the U.S. on their home soil? How awesome would that be?
They would hate it. The U.S. would hate it.
They would hate it. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that'd be awesome, but don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, I guess. We're still a year. So, but I was going to make this point. I wish Russia and Czechia were in this tournament. Now, I get the whole political thing with Russia, but I still think they should be allowed to play in these international tournaments. It's ultimately not the players' fault. It's what's going on. And then for Czechia, they literally just won the gold medal at the World Hockey Championships. Now, I get that that's not best on best, but you still have a lot of good hockey players playing at that tournament. A lot of players from teams that got eliminated in the playoffs or their team didn't make the playoffs. Connor Bedard was at that tournament. Dylan Cousins. John Tavares was for Canada, but like, man, I really call him a great hockey player. And I'm joking. He's still a 64 point. So, but yeah, like I feel like Czechia should be in it. I think it's a missed opportunity even for Germany to not be in it. For Leon Draisaitl, have him be a part of this tournament. I think that would be cool. Pasternak's on Czechia. Would you not like? It'd be cool to see Pasternak and Czechia play in Boston. I think that would be awesome. So yeah, I guess it's kind of one of those things where it's like great that we're Good news, we're getting best on best somewhat, but bad news is that it's 4 teams. Next piece of news here, a new reality series made by the same people that made the F1 Drive to Survive and the golf one as well. I forget what that
Full
was.
swing.
Yeah. They're making a series similar to that for the NHL. It'll feature Connor McDavid, Matthew Tkachuk, Jacob Trouba, Leon Draisaitl, David Pastrnak, Jeremy Swayman, Quinn Hughes, William Nylander, Philip Forsberg, Gabriel Landeskog, and of course, here my other one, Jack Eichel. Let's go. I'm excited for that, but I think it'll be an awesome series for NHL fans. I said this to our group chat earlier this week, but I don't think it's going to grow the game the way the NHL is hoping it to. Will, you made the point earlier on the show. They don't even have a name for it yet. And here's the thing, too, is the NHL's had a lot of these reality series before. They had the Road to the Winter Classic, which was great. They have the Quest for the Cup over the playoffs. They haven't had it this season for whatever reason on YouTube, but they had it for the last number of years. And especially, it was cool for, like, I watched it all the playoffs last year, and I found it cool, especially because the Golden Knights ended up. You watch the games from, say, Game 2 is being played on Monday. You see the behind the scenes of that game on Friday. And I thought that was so cool. Like, you get to watch it as it's going on. But the NHL did a horrible job of marketing that. And honestly, that alone, that series could have been huge for the NHL. But they just decided not to market it. And honestly, the only reason I knew that it was even around last year was because they had marketed. The only time they had marketed it was, I think, during the first year they had it in 2018 or 19. And so I was looking last year. I'm like, do they still have this thing? And then seen it and decided to watch it. But like, if you were a new hockey fan, you wouldn't have known that was going on YouTube. So I'm a little skeptical with how the NHL is going to be marketing this. The other thing is, now I'm not sure how the golf one went, or I didn't watch the golf one and I didn't watch the F1 one. But the quarterback series featured 3 players. This has, let me count them here for a second, 11 players.
I'd be busy. Well, I mean, I guess Full Swing I had a bunch of players too. They kind of dedicated an episode to 2 players.
Okay.
Yeah, they split up each episode by 2, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm looking at this and I'm like I'm guessing that. So Nylander's the one that they open up the trailer with. I'm guessing he's going to be featured heavily. But like Philip Forsberg from the Nashville Predators, is he's going to get the same amount of airtime as, say, Connor McDavid? You know what I mean?
I think so, right?
Yeah. The other one here that's interesting is Gabriel Landeskog, who didn't play a game this year with injury. So I think that'll be an interesting storyline for the series. Of course, I'm excited for Jack Eichel. I can't wait to watch the B-roll of him polishing his Stanley Cup ring. But no, a couple of other interesting names. David Pastrnak, I think, will be entertaining. The McDavid and Draisaitl dynamic with them making the Stanley Cup Finals, along with Matthew Tkachuk. The other one is Jacob Trouba, who has been kind of a controversial player this year with his headshots and his elbows. So I'm expecting some good mic'd up footage from him. The other good mic'd up footage I want to see, make a plea to the NHL. I know that you have the footage. Give us it in this show of William Nylander telling Mitch Marner, fucking junior bro, stop crying. Give us that footage. That would make the entire series if they release that.
And the thing with these shows is, yeah, you can go into them like having a idea of who these players are and their personalities, but there's always going to be the one guy that just stands above all of them, personality wise.
Yeah.
And it's always the guy you don't see coming.
Yeah. The one for me was Kirk Cousins. I thought he was going to be lame, and it turns out he's got a massive shrine to himself. And
that's what I was going to say is Part of it is, I think, 11 players is going to be a lot, but there is also just the opportunity when you do have 11 players that like a higher percentage of them are going to be somewhat enjoyable.
Yeah.
Whereas with the quarterback one, you miss out on one guy. People don't find them enjoyable. Like you're kind of hooped because such a large portion of the show is dedicated to them.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Yeah. Because with Kirk Cousins, he came on screen and immediately I was like I didn't know that much about him. He had the memes, like the "you like that," the Kirko bangs. Like there are so many things, so that's kind of what I was expecting, and he was just not what I was thinking he was going to be like at all. And I was like, man. And then Mahomes came on, and his whole storyline was kind of weird, and I was like, I just don't really know if I want to watch this. I just wasn't really engaged in it. So I don't know. I feel like just with having 11 players, the odds of at least some of them being entertaining enough for me to want to continue watching it is a lot higher.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's true. Taylor, do you have anything to say about that series?
I hope they do a good job, but
Yeah.
if it's made by the same people as all the other series, it'll probably be fine. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I feel like a lot of the guys they picked for the first series are like kind of duds when it comes to personality, so I'm interested to see. Like McDavid's not a well-spoken guy. I would say Leon Draisaitl. I wouldn't say he's the most like exciting guy to listen to. Trouba probably not. Quinn Hughes definitely not. That guy's like a Eggo waffle of personality. There's like 4 or 5 guys where I'm like, how are they gonna get enough interesting stuff out of them? But we'll find out.
For sure. Next piece of the salary.
Sorry, I was going to say one more thing. The golf one, it wasn't always the best player. It was the guys that were entertaining on the tour.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like they're not getting Tiger Woods because, well, first of all, they probably couldn't. Second of all, he's more like serious and stuff like that. Whereas they get people like Joel Damon, who's potentially not the best golfer, but he's really entertaining and he's funny. So I don't know. Hopefully the year after they'll figure out the right way to do it where they can get people that are like exciting to watch, unless they base it solely on hockey and nothing outside of hockey. I don't know. Might be interesting to see what they do.
Yeah. For sure. Next piece of news here: the salary cap raising next year from $83.5 million to $88 million. It's a huge jump. I'm happy about that. It means that the Golden Knights can even circumvent the salary cap even more. But no, I think it's a great change for the NHL. Teams have been wanting this change now for a few seasons, so it's great to finally get it here. Elliot Friedman reports that some player agents are lobbying for the NHL to change the draft format from 7 rounds to 4 rounds next year, or not next year, but in the next CBA. They argue that players tend to not sign late round picks, so they don't want to hold up players' careers for 2 to 4 years only to not be signed by the teams. The current CBA, it expires at the end of the 25-26 season, so I think if they made this change, it would be effective in the 2027 NHL draft. I think it's an interesting argument. At first, when I seen that, I'm like, oh, that's dumb. But then when you read into the argument, it makes sense. Like, you have these players that go in these later rounds. Teams may not care to sign them, but so say a team's drafted to Edmonton. Edmonton doesn't want to sign them but they still have their rights for 2 to 4 seasons. So the player can't pursue other opportunities elsewhere. He's basically handcuffed to that team until his rights expire, and then at that point he can go sign with, say, Vancouver or whoever. So I think it's an interesting argument to be made. I'm not sure if they're going to do it, because that is a drastic change. Like, you're eliminating 3 rounds of the draft now, and the argument will always be, people will say, what about Kirill Kaprizov who went in the 5th round? I already seen that argument. What about so-and-so that went in the 7th round? And that's going to be one that gets brought up. So, next one here. Speaking of the draft, it's just kind of a funny piece of news. Teams are asking player prospects at the NHL Combine for their Uber rating and snap score. Yeah. I will say I don't think the Uber rating one is as bad as people make it out to be. Like, no. I guess you kind of see judge of player character. The snap score one is a bit weird, I think.
Yeah. I can kind of understand the Uber rating one because it's like,
being on time and respectful,
yeah, that's literally all it is like, how well do you treat the people who are doing this for you? But the snap score one, that does not make any sense to me.
You have to show the scouts your roster.
Yeah,
That's the type of stuff where he was going through phones.
it does sound like Mike Babcock.
Yeah, it does. So there's always weird questions asked at the combine. The one last year, I think it was like, at your funeral, what would people say about you? Which is kind of okay.
It's a bit of a dark way to start it off.
Yeah. Two more pieces of news here. Lane Lambert's been hired as the assistant coach for the Maple Leafs. He was an awful head coach with the Islanders. And I made the joke, I think, maybe in the group chat this week that Austin Matthews is aiming for 70 goals next year. He'll be lucky with 70 points, the way that Lane Lambert's offenses were going with the Islanders. But the Islanders did have success with him as an assistant coach. Now, they also had Barry Trotz as the head coach, who I thought was fantastic. But still, they found success with him as the assistant coach. And there are coaches that thrive in other roles that just aren't good as a head coach, but they find success as an assistant. Maybe Lane Lambert's that guy for the Maple Leafs. Stanley Cup Final is being broadcasted this year in American Sign Language. Awesome. More people that we can reach out to with this, the better. So I don't see a problem with it at all. I did see kind of the one call, and those guys that do it, man, they put on a clinic. Let me tell you.
I was gonna say, to get like the emotion across and also be doing it like consistently for the entirety of a game, it's not an easy thing to do.
Nope. So yeah, that does it for the NHL this week. Where do we want to move to? I'm thinking maybe do NFL or MLB and end off with NBA. Unless you guys just get through the NBA first.
I think I'm good moving on to the NFL just because there isn't as much to talk about there. We started it last week. We got off the show and we were immediately like, oh man, we forgot to talk about Darren Waller and everything that he's been up to. I don't even know how to describe it. Clayton, I know you're the one that brought it up, so I assume you've seen the video. Will and Taylor, have you guys seen the video that he made?
Oh yeah. It's a spectacle.
It sure was something.
I will say I watched his entire video. Worst two and a half minutes of my life, but I will say this: the reason why I watched it was simply because I wanted to watch it so that I could say how bad it was.
Yeah, that's about the only reason you can watch that entire video. That's brutal.
It's a tough watch.
I couldn't get through the clips on IG.
So the part where he's lost in the ocean, the water's hitting his face, I'm like, this is just awful.
It's horrible, man. It's
so funny though. So I guess maybe we should explain, because I'm sure there's lots of people who are like, what the hell are you guys talking about? Darren Waller, what did he do? He recently divorced his wife, Kelsey Plum, who's obviously the WNBA player. They split up. I think it was like they only got married like a year ago or something. So they got divorced recently, and Darren Waller's response was to make it like a music video. Like we said, it's kind of strange. Towards the end, he has an impersonator who looks like his ex-wife, who goes to give him a hug and stabs him in the back. It's such an absurd video. That was the clip that I saw where I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to check this out at least a little bit. But yeah, it was a struggle to get through those 2.5 minutes. So if you want to just find the most enjoyable part, just skip to wherever you see the woman come on screen and then watch that, because it's some pretty insane stuff in there, man.
The comments on his video too were just shredding him. Like I hate to laugh at the guy when he's going through a tough time, but like he's going through this tough time, makes this video, and people's responses, are you retiring or not?
Yeah, literally. Enough with the music.
But like, what did he think was going to happen? Like, you make that video, is people are going to be like, man, Darren Waller, I feel so bad for him. This video changed my whole opinion on him. Like, obviously people are going to be making fun of you for it. It was a weird thing to do.
Yeah.
I just don't know what he thought the best outcome would be there.
Yep.
It's a tough look.
So the next thing we have here, the Vikings unveiled some new uniforms. Can't remember what they're called. They do have a name for them, but essentially they are just like whiteout jerseys.
Like the Winter Warrior or something like that.
Yeah, that's what it is. So if you're at home listening, go look them up, just so you know, have some context as to what we're talking about here. But what do you guys think of them? What are your opinions?
I think they look.
I know I like them. I do. I'm a sucker for a whiteout jersey.
Yeah.
I still don't think they can compare to the Bengals whiteout jerseys.
No.
Probably not.
The white and purple is nice, but it almost feels like it's missing something. Like a little extra detail in it.
Yeah. That's kind of my thought process too, is like, we've seen lots of these whiteout jerseys now in various different leagues. So it's kind of starting to feel like a little bit much. It's like, okay, we get it. They're supposed to be like clean and super sharp. But yeah, it does feel like when there's like a lack of detail with them, or like there isn't some secondary thing that kind of makes it a little bit more vibrant. Yeah, it's just not quite the same. So I think they still look good. I think it's hard to like make a whiteout jersey so bad that it just isn't good at all. But yeah, I do agree. It really doesn't hold a candle to the Bengals whiteouts. But yeah, I don't know what they could have done to make it like any better. So I guess maybe this is as good as it gets. But yeah, I think they're fine. I have no issue with them. But yeah, there just are better ones out there.
I like this as well. I like this, like the Viking one, and I like the Bengals. But I hope it doesn't become an oversaturated trend in the NFL with the whiteout jerseys.
Yeah,
I agree.
I
feel like it only really works if you have like a bold color.
Yeah.
Dude. Like, I feel like maybe the Seahawks could do a sick whiteout jersey with like maybe like the neon green accents.
Maybe that. They couldn't do one with the blue. I think it would just look nice.
Yeah.
Like I'm saying, it has to be like a bold color.
Yeah.
I think part of it is like, I think if you are doing jerseys like that, you probably should have like a white alternate or like white on your jersey somewhere already. If you're like a team that doesn't have white anywhere in their branding and you come with a whiteout jersey, it'll just look kind of off. So yeah, I don't know. It's like, yeah, I think we're already starting to like, if one or two more teams come out with whiteout jerseys, I'll be like, yeah, I'm good. We don't need any more of these. Again, not a whole lot of news, just kind of going through training camp. The Lions are forced to give up one of their Monday OTAs because they violated an on-field contact rule earlier this week. Kind of happens all the time. I feel like these stuff like this gets blown out of proportion a lot because people don't really read the reason as to why it gets banned. They just see that the Vikings were forced to give up blank. People are like, oh my God, what the hell did the Vikings or the Lions do? So it's not that big of a deal, I don't think, at least. It just gets blown out of proportion. And then, of course, it's the stereotypical training camp, everything. You know, coach says this rookie looks good. Player says he's in good shape. Team says they're a playoff team. It's all the same. We see it every season. There's really nothing noteworthy happening so far. Unless you guys saw something that I didn't. I don't think there's been a ton of crazy news coming out of the NFL this week.
No.
Exciting news! The Armchair Athletes are pumped to announce our partnership with BetStamp and Sign Up Experts, opening up an incredible opportunity for you to join some of our favorite sportsbooks to get the best odds and new user offers. If you're ready to take your sports betting to the next level and maybe cash in on a parlay or a sleeper pick that you think is a moneymaker, we highly recommend signing up for your next sportsbook through our Sign Up Expert link. Head over to our dedicated page at signupexpert.com/armchairathletes to explore a selection of sportsbooks tailored to your region, each with unique offerings. Click the link in this episode's description to sign up now.
Yeah, so I think now we can move on to the MLB and we can finish off with the NBA. To start it off, I just want to say that Ronald Acuna Jr. suffered an ACL tear. Again, this is another one. He's had a few of them now. So wish the best for him. He was kind of having a down season already, and now this is obviously that's a real heartbreaker for him, coming off a big season after that first ACL injury. And then Shohei Ohtani has been officially cleared by the FBI in their investigation. He's been cleared of guilt. They say he is the victim of fraud from his interpreter, Ippei Mizuhara. And still, the replies to any piece of news regarding Ohtani are, oh, the FBI is covering it up, or Ohtani was actually betting all along. Ippei's the fall guy. It's the same as it always has been. I just really, really don't understand how people can look at that and assume that, like, the FBI, like the government organization for America, is going to be like buddy with the MLB because they want Shohei Ohtani to stay in the league. Thinking that is more likely than Ohtani just not being the guy who's betting is crazy to me. Whether that's because you just hate Ohtani and you want him to fail, or you're a Dodgers hater or whatever, just like take the tinfoil hat off for a minute and just go outside, get some fresh air, enjoy the world around you, because it's ridiculous to still think that he has guilt in this situation. Yeah. Next thing up, sticking with the Dodgers here, we got Teoscar Hernandez. I really don't have to say too much. He hit 2 home runs, including a grand slam against the Yankees yesterday. Man, would he look nice in a Blue Jays uniform this year. But we aren't allowed to have good things for Toronto, so wish him the best in Los Angeles as he continues to be a fantastic hitter for them. The MLB opened up their London series. Phillies won their first game 7-2. Bryce Harper hit a home run. Did one of like the soccer knee slide celebrations, heading back into the dugout. The man's entertaining. I think he changed his walk-up song to a Spice Girls song for this series. So the man knows what he's doing in terms of marketing. So shout out to Bryce Harper for that one. And then this last thing before we get into some Blue Jays stuff is just Aaron Judge, man. He started off the season just not good. And since then, he's like mirroring his record-setting season in 2022, where he hit 62 home runs. He essentially took a month off and is now performing even better offensively than he did in that 2022 season. As of right now, he's on pace for 11.5 WAR, an 11.17 OPS, 210 WRC plus, and 56 home runs. He's the best hitter in baseball, and it really isn't particularly close right now. And I think it was hilarious to see Yankees fans at the start of the season talking about needing to send him down to AAA or trading him or getting him off the team, whatever. When a guy's that talented and you've seen him be that talented for years and years and years, and really the only thing that ever has sidetracked him has been injuries, it's pretty ridiculous to overreact that much. And now he's repaid that by being the major league leader in home runs and having one of the best offensive seasons that we've seen. I mean, aside from his own in 2022. So, yeah, shout out to Aaron Judge. Now we can move on to the Blue Jays because, man, what a roller coaster of a team they have been recently, even more so than they have been in the past. So they're starting to reel me back in. I can't deny it. I'm getting close. But since the last episode, they are now 5-4. The City Connect debut was right after our episode on Friday. It was 14 innings, and Davis Schneider ended up walking it off 5-3. And then they followed it up with an 8-1 loss, and they closed the series out with a 5-4 win. Then they moved on to the Orioles, and those first 2 games in that series, they just got absolutely dominated, like stomped out, whatever you want to say. The Orioles just looked like the far better team. Really, the only redeeming thing in that entire first 2 games of the series is that Vlad hit a home run. And that was pretty much it. And then they come out in Game 3, and it's an IKF walk-off. They win 3-2 to take a game from the Orioles in that series. And Barrios pitched fantastic as well. So then it kind of is like, okay, well, they can beat the Orioles. They've proven it. So are they back? And then the next game, they come out again. They beat the Orioles. Vlad hits another home run. They win that game as well. Kikuchi has a fantastic start, and it looks like the Blue Jays are all the way back. And then they come out in typical Blue Jays fashion. They lose the game 2-1. Bassett has a fantastic game against the A's, and then they get walked off by JJ Bleday. So that's tough. And then the second game of that series, just when everyone thinks it's looking like it's going to be over, it's a 7-0 win, complete game shutout from Kevin Gausman. Kiermaier hits a home run, and just like that, everyone's back saying there's hope. Yeah, I just don't know what to make of this team. I wish that they would be consistent, whether it's consistently good or consistently bad. I really don't care. I just want a direction for this team to go in. Atkins, we already know that he isn't the greatest GM, so you don't need to make it harder than it has to be by being this up and down team that doesn't really have a consistent direction to go. At this point, I think I am still pro blowing this team up. I don't think they're a World Series roster. I don't think any moves right now are going to get them to be World Series. It's an incredibly expensive team. A lot of the guys that they're spending money on are old. So I think you just kind of send everyone out on the trade block and see what value you can get in return. I think the only guys at this point that I wouldn't be up to putting on the trade block, at least offensively, are Vlad, Schneider, Jansen, and Varsho. Other than that, in terms of the offense, I have no attachment to anyone. That does include Bo Bichette. He just hasn't been good enough to solidify a spot in saying that he shouldn't be traded. And honestly, at this point, I hope they don't make the playoffs. This team last year, we saw them get smoked by the Twins in the wild card. If they do make the wild card again, it's going to be the same thing happening. I have no faith in them to move on past that point. So that's kind of where I'm at with the Blue Jays. They're still just as frustrating to watch. They are closer to a wild card spot than they were at this point last week. I think they're only 2 games out right now. But I don't want them to make it because I just don't want to watch another collapse in the wild card we've seen it the past 2 years. I don't want it to happen again. And then for one final thing, this is a pretty big news for the team here. We have Kevon Biggio was DFA'd earlier this week to make room on the roster for Spencer Horwitz. He hasn't been picked up by anyone yet, so he might clear waivers and come back to the team. Who knows? But he's been just god-awful as well. On a team full of bad offense, he has been towards the bottom in terms of hitting. So, yeah, he's a good utility guy. He can kind of play wherever on the field. But honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter if he can't hit a baseball. So not surprising to me that he was DFA'd, especially with Vogelbach kind of starting to turn around a little bit and have some offensive production. He was kind of the odd man out on that roster. So, yeah, come on, Biggio. I wish you the best wherever you go. And at this point, it's looking like I might be coming back to play for the Jays in the minor league system.
What the fuck is going on?
What are you doing? You're like setting up a printer or something over there?
No, my shift key is like pushed in and now it's like making this weird noise.
Oh, it's got the sticky keys going. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know how to turn that off. Oh
well. But yeah, that's all I got for the MLB this week. If you guys have anything that you want to add, feel free. If not, we can move on to the NBA.
Oh, did we talk Alek Manoah? He's out for the season.
I believe that happened last week, I think.
He was hurt last week, but I know they announced this week that he's out for the season.
Yeah, he's out for the season. Yeah, we did. I'm pretty sure we talked about it last week, but yeah, out for the season with an elbow injury. I think it's a UCL or something. So that's one more thing to add to the list of disappointments in terms of this Jays team. Looked like he was really starting to turn it around. And then, yeah, so for a season-ending injury for him at this point, just a huge, huge blow for him and for the Jays. So wishing the best in his recovery, and hopefully he can come back and be just as dominant as he was in the last few starts.
Now on to the NBA. I see who you guys have here for the baller of the week. Hurts a little bit. But he is the baller of the week without a doubt. He went off in that game 1. Take it away, one of you.
I just yapped for a while. Will, if you want to be the
yeah,
you
sure.
want to announce this?
I mean, I guess we could just start with saying Game 1 of the NBA Finals went to Boston pretty easily, I would say, and much of that success came down to Tingus Pingus himself Kristaps Porzingis in his first game back since April just put on a clinic. 20 points, 6 boards, 3 blocks, 8 of 13 shooting, 2 of 4 from 3. Like you said here, Terrell, the box score doesn't really do him justice because he played so much bigger than 20 and 6. It just looked like he was absolutely everywhere on the floor, offensively and defensively. And those threes that he was hitting weren't like, barely over the line. Like he was deep out.
Oh yeah.
And at Kristaps Porzingis' size, there's nothing you can do when he's that far off the three-point line and shooting it like he is. And I've kind of been saying this like after watching that first game, it kind of just reminds people that Kristaps Porzingis was Wemby before Wemby. I mean,
He was
this
the
guy,
first unicorn.
seriously, Wemby's the alien. Kristaps Porzingis was a unicorn. You don't get that name from Kevin Durant for no reason. And it's pretty cool to see Kristaps Porzingis finally getting his flowers. But yeah, Boston, big win in game 1. Clayton, how are you feeling about that?
See in my description, I put 6 we ain't faced, and then I was gonna put in the brackets yet.
Yes.
Um,
Sorry, I was just gonna say we all did our game 1 predictions, and real ball knower, I was the only one who got it right. That's all I'm gonna say.
Clairvoyant.
That's all I'm gonna say.
For me, and I know I said this in the last episode, and I said it on Twitter too. I'm picking with my heart here with the Dallas Mavericks. I just can't bring myself to pick the Celtics, man. I can't do it.
I thought Dallas had a lot go wrong for them in game 1. And now we said the same about the Timberwolves in the Mavericks series where people said, oh, well, Towns isn't going to be this bad over the course of the series. It was just one game, and he ended up being that. So I hope it's not that for the Mavericks, but I will say Kyrie didn't have a good game. He was shooting a lot, and none of it was going in large part as well. Kristaps Porzingis did a great job on defense. Dallas they were shooting a lot, not just a lot of it wasn't going in. Especially they had a couple of times where they were getting those second and third chances, and even those weren't dropping in for Dallas. So yeah, just a tough game overall. I still thought Luka played great in that game, maybe the bright spot for the Mavericks in game 1. But yeah, overall, a lot could have went better for Dallas. Derek Lively also didn't have his best game either. I found for Dallas, I believe he had 5 fouls in that game, and then missed a couple of shots too. So
Yeah, so today, at the time of this recording, game 2 is today. And a report came out 9 minutes ago that Luka Doncic is questionable for game 2.
I think
He
was questionable, I think, for one of the Nuggets games or Thunder games. I think he'll play in the end. There's no stuff,
but he has been banged up throughout this entire playoff run, and with stuff like knee sprains and left ankle soreness. But this is thoracic contusion is what he's listed as questionable for, which is like a chest contusion, I guess. And
is that a dinosaur or something?
Yeah, thoracic Cretaceous contusion. Yeah, I think he plays as well. But man, if you have Doncic on limited minutes after just a pitiful game 1, it's really not a good look for Mavericks fans.
No, for sure.
Maybe that means Kyrie kind of takes the reins in game 2 and steps up big time, which is really what you need from him.
I think whether Luka plays or not, is going to be what has to happen.
Yeah,
I think PJ Washington to step up too in Luka's absence. He was fantastic in the first 2 rounds, and then he was all right in the series against the Timberwolves. Usually, Terrell sent it to our group chat, scheduled PJ Washington corner 3. They drained a couple of those in the series, but he didn't take over kind of like he did against the Thunder and the Clippers. So I'd like to see more from him in game 2 for Dallas.
I think a lot of that depends on Luka Doncic, though, because PJ Washington isn't a guy going out there to find his own shot. A lot of it is shots created by Luka Doncic's presence and driving ability. So I think that's a big task to ask of PJ Washington. Obviously, he can give you those threes, but a lot of the opportunities are coming off of mismatches and scrambled defenses.
Yeah. And I think you saying that Kyrie didn't play well is kind of underselling it. He was horrible that game. Like, he was god-awful. I think 6 of 19 from the field. He didn't hit a three. No free throws. He had 12 points. He was terrible. And, like, he hit a couple of those, like, Kyrie smothered, like, weird fade-in jumpers from the mid-range, and then he couldn't hit anything else. And if Luka's out and Kyrie's going to be the main guy, it's kind of like, who else are they going to focus on other than Kyrie? And if Kyrie isn't on his game like he was in game 1, I just have zero way that the Mavs can beat the Celtics. It'd have to be like an insane collapse from this Celtics team for them to lose here. And with their depth, I just don't see how that happens. So hopefully Luka can play, because he was pretty good in game 1. He was pretty much the only offensive bright spot for this Mavs team. And if he's not out there, I just don't think they have a shot whatsoever.
No. We kind of saw in game 2, I think it was the third quarter, which Boston kind of went cold and Dallas was heating up at the same time, and they brought it back to an 8-point game. Joe Mazzulla called a timeout for the Celtics, and then Boston went on an 8-0 run and just kind of crushed Dallas's hopes just like that. And I think we've seen that a lot with the Celtics getting a big lead and then taking their foot off the gas and just being content with what they have. So it's a good sign for Celtics fans to see their team not take their foot off the gas and continue to just go and kill to close out the game.
Yeah. And I think the other guy that you have to give a shout out to, other than Kristaps Porzingis, is obviously Jaylen Brown, because he was also fantastic in this game. Both sides of the ball, kind of same thing that Porzingis was. And he had, I think, 22, 6, and 3. And yeah, he was just fantastic. Him being like your second option on this team really shows how deep this Boston team can be. Kind of tying that into this, I don't know if you guys saw Jason Kidd's quote from yesterday, saying that Jaylen Brown is the best player on the Celtics. And I want to know what you guys think about that, because obviously it comes across as kind of a slight to Jason Tatum and the player that he is.
I think it does come across as a slight, but I don't think Kidd meant it that way. I think it meant more just praising Jaylen Brown that did trying to slight Jason Tatum. Because like you said, Jaylen Brown was fantastic in game 1 for the Celtics.
Yeah, I don't know. I think as much as we disrespect Jason Tatum, maybe not we, but like a lot of people do. We do. Some of us are more inclined to hate on Jason Tatum than others, but I don't know, man. Game 1, 100% looked like Jaylen Brown is the best player on this team, but I don't think you can count Jason Tatum out like that, and I don't think that's what Jason Kidd is doing. He's just, like you said, Clayton, just giving Jaylen Brown his flowers.
Or playing mind games.
Yeah.
That was
because I've seen a couple people now say he's playing mind games and then try and get Jason Tatum to take more of the shots in game 2. And then I don't know if you guys saw, Drew Holiday said he's not wrong about Jason Kidd. So I think Celtics kind of have that mentality too, that Jaylen Brown's the top guy on that team.
I think I'm trying to find it because I'm pretty sure Tatum said, Tatum responded. He just said that it's a team sport. That was essentially the gist of his quote, which is like fair enough. I think it is pretty funny that we get that quote after game 1. And And it kind of does to me. You said it was kind of seemed like it was mind games from Jason Kidd. I don't think it is. I think it is just giving Jaylen Brown his flowers because he was fantastic in that game. But it is kind of funny because it could come across as like trying to bait Jason Tatum into taking more of those shots and playing hero ball or whatever. I don't think it's going to work if that is the intention. I think that the Celtics team is just too well rounded for that to be the case. But man, would it be funny to see Jason Tatum go out there and take like 30 shots and hit 8 of them, and that's why the Celtics loses because he just keeps chucking up bricks. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
One thing I noticed about the first game, it was a absolutely like dunk-filled game.
Yeah.
There was so many dunks in that game. It didn't feel like 2024 basketball. Like it was just like forwards yamming on each other, man. It was awesome to watch. Like between PJ Washington, Jaylen Brown, like everybody was dunking it. It was sick.
Yeah.
I know you were saying that some of us hate on Tatum more than others do. And it's hard for me to do this without sounding like I'm hating on him, but I mean, 16 points when you're like the number one guy, you went 6 of 16 from the field. And then you go online and Boston fans are like, look at this screen that Jason Tatum set. He's such a winner. And it's like, he's your number one guy. He should be like, do more than that. You know, I understand that it's a team game and, he's doing what he needs to win. But then why is he in MVP talks? Like, if that's not the player he is, then that's fine. But quit trying to force it because it gets really annoying.
Hey, man, the Bronny James effect is real. Everybody loves a good screener.
That is true.
Gets you a role on an NBA team.
And check out his offensive gravity. And I saw a Celtics fan post the screenshot and it's like, look at how they're guarding Jason Tatum. And it was just a picture of like a 3-2 zone where there's 3 guys down in the paint and then 2 guys out in the perimeter. So it looks like there's more guys on Tatum, but really there isn't. It's just, I don't know. And I like, he's a good player. Obviously he's great. I think he's like easily a top 10 guy in the league, but it's just, it's kind of I was going to say it's like the Purdy thing, but not really because Tatum's way better as a basketball player than Purdy is as a football player. But it's kind of the same thing where he's on this great team and he has so many good pieces around him. So it kind of like forces him up into these conversations. He's the best player on a great team. And I just don't – sometimes it feels like he doesn't deserve to be there. And then Celtics fans coming out and, like I said, talking about look at this screen that he set or look at this offensive gravity that he has when he puts up 16 points in game 1 of the finals. It's just kind of tough sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Any news happening in the NBA? I saw that like the NBA is closing in on their media rights deal, but I mean nothing has been finalized yet. So
yeah,
I hope you're right.
What's that?
I hope TNT keeps the media rights.
Well, I don't think they will. They have next year still, but
yeah,
I don't think they're a part of the deal as of right now.
I've seen some stuff floated around that like they're looking to just keep like a smaller amount of the game so they can still have inside the NBA, but only for specific ones for like nationally televised games or like whatever they want to pick as opposed to every night. But I really hope that it sticks around in some form or another, just because I think to lose inside the NBA and all those guys would be really, really bad and would kind of take away a lot of the enjoyment in watching those games, especially like I don't know who would be the comment or the broadcast instead over them. But yeah, I don't know. That would be a tough loss.
I think that maybe another channel picks them up. Like you could just easily just change it from TNT to anybody else. But
I know Ernie said he's not leaving TNT though. And yeah, you can bring Shaq and Chuck and Kenny, but it's not the same without Ernie.
No, that's true.
No.
Maybe I don't know. Maybe they'll still somehow do it.
It's
inside the NBA when you've got Kendrick Perkins.
It's actually crazy just how much the TNT crew clears ESPN. Like,
Not even close.
I don't know. Like, just the chemistry between like the TNT guys and the history that they have, and even just the entertainment value. You're not replacing that with like Michael Wilbon and Bob Myers.
Mm-mm.
Like,
I will. I like Michael Wilbon on PTI. I think that's a great show, but yeah, I don't watch him on the NBA stuff. But like you said, I think that's a chemistry thing too. Like he's been doing it with the guy he's on, the one guy that he's with on PTI for years now. So they've developed chemistry there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like for me, I think the craziest thing is like it's a super like beloved broadcasting crew that everyone enjoys. Like it gets me to stick around for an NBA halftime show, like and just sit and watch the entirety of halftime, which is something that doesn't really happen in any other sport. So yeah, I feel like it'd just be such a huge missed opportunity to have them not broadcast the game again. Yeah, I don't know. So I hope they stick around in some form or another. And I feel like it'd be a big loss from the NBA if that isn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Bracket check-in. I'm winning.
Yes.
Holy.
I think it's in the same spot as it was last week, wasn't it? Because I don't think nothing's changed.
I don't know if check-in though last week. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we did, because I'm pretty sure I said it because you took over me. You have like 5,000 points, and I have 4,400 or something.
Yeah.
But I completely forgot to do this for the NHL, but I have the bracket pulled up on my phone. I want to say Rhodey's back in number 1. He's back in that first place spot. Taylor, you're in second. We got Kranzler in fourth. Or Kranzler in third. Tori, 4 goals, 1 man bracket in fourth, and then me in fifth. I'm tied with Fleeter. But yeah, Rhodey has retaken his position in that number 1 spot. He is inevitable at this point, it seems.
Guess we'll just have to see how it goes. Is that it for the NBA then?
I think so.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We've got, I guess, a special edition of the list, you could say. We don't have as much time for show today, so we something a bit shorter, but it's kind of a list. It's more so just like a fun idea type of thing. So our idea for today is you have 5 championships that you have to divide amongst your sports teams. And you have to divide them. I have an idea for mine. So,
You started off then.
I have an idea for mine too, so I'm good.
I'm going to give 2 more championships to the Vegas Golden Knights. Now, the reason why I'm giving them 2 more is because that would mean 3 over the last number of years. That pretty much makes them a dynasty, a modern-day dynasty in the NHL. So I'm going to give them those championships and take them to that next level of greatness, I guess. I'm going to give 2 to the Seattle Seahawks. Now, years ago, the Seattle Seahawks got 1. They should have had 2. But then I don't know, the world just kind of exploded at that point.
The game just stopped. Yeah, I don't know what happened.
Yeah. So I'm gonna give this edition of and I think it's a fun team that the Seahawks have I think it's a fun offense with Walker, DK Metcalf, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. So I'd like to see that group win.
No love to Jake Bobo.
Oh, Jake Bobo, how can I forget?
Well, you don't even have to mention him.
That's why there's no love.
You don't have to. You don't even have to bring it up because it's just a given that he'd be included. By the way, he'd be receiver 1 on the Pittsburgh Steelers.
All right, that's enough. He's not even making the fucking squad.
Okay, no, that's too far. I think my statement's closer than that is.
No, it's not.
You
can't make 8 catches in an entire year and be on the team.
It's like the
Well, you
lowest.
couldn't make 8 catches with Kenny Pickett throwing the ball. That's for sure.
He's not though.
Why is this
That's what I'm saying.
conversation? Whether
Because he needs to put respect on Jake Bobo's name.
That's crazy.
If his name was Jake Jones, nobody would be talking about him.
We've been doing the polls on the Instagram story the last couple of weeks, and I usually include one for the list at the end. I'm gonna include, is Jake Bobo the number one? Would he be the number one receiver on the Pittsburgh Steelers?
You know what I'm voting for. There's
That's
going to
fine.
be at least one vote for yes.
He's just lucky he has a funny last name, or else.
Hey man, that catch against the Cardinals, that was like that one-hander. That was one of the best of the year, man.
I would say Pickens has a better one last year, anyway. So it's fine.
I don't remember it, so it doesn't count.
That's okay.
Our list should just be top 5.
I don't remember you guys making the playoffs either. So.
Oh my god, this is the most useless.
It is. Okay, let's move on. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
Both. They
My last championship. This one comes with a condition. If the Dallas Mavericks win it this year, I'm giving it to the Toronto Blue Jays. If the Mavericks don't, I'm giving it to the Mavericks simply because, like, I hate to say it, Terrell, I don't think this edition of the Blue Jays, this group, is worthy of a championship. I think I want to see Luka Doncic win a championship pretty badly. So I'm fine with one for Luka. So I want Luka to win one. If the Mavericks don't win it this year, I'll give it to the Jays. Just because I think it'd be cool to see a Blue Jays World Series win.
I think that's a good segue for me to do mine because I was going to say the exact same thing for the Toronto Blue Jays. I wasn't going to give them one either. And also, I'll do my other ones first, and then I'll give my explanation afterwards. So kind of the same thing as you. I would give 2 to the Seahawks, and it wouldn't really – I would be like on the verge of giving them 3 just because I think that puts them in like one of the best teams ever category. And if I need to see Geno Smith with at least 1 ring, that is my goal here. If they could get Geno one before anyone on the 49ers gets one, that would be hilarious. I know it would vindicate me of everything that I've ever said on the show. So I think I would split it up with 2 to the Seahawks to start it off. And then I think I'm giving 2 to the Raptors right away as well. Obviously, they've won one more recently than my other teams have. But I think they're also, due to that, I think they deserve some more success because they are one of the few that has given me some happiness in recent years, whereas all my other teams have kind of been bringing me down. So I think they could use 2 more. Get to see Scotty Barnes win a couple rings. I think he's very worthy of that. And then for my final one, this is where I have I have to do some extra math because this Blue Jays team so far has been so disappointing. I almost want to retroactively go back and steal one that they won back-to-back to give somewhere else just because I feel like they don't deserve it anymore. But I don't want to do that to them, so they'll keep it. So I have one more left to give out. And I don't know. I don't think this team deserves one. If I could give out like 1 ring to 1 player, maybe I'll give it to Vlad. Or maybe Schneider could get one too, but I'm not giving the Toronto Blue Jays organization a championship. Just trying to think what team deserves one that doesn't have one yet.
I didn't.
Maybe I'd give
their roster present day. I just based it on the team.
I know, but like I don't even want to give them like if Ross Atkins wins a championship with his team, he doesn't deserve it. I don't care.
I was just basing on like the team, not.
Oh no, that's totally fair. I'm reading into this a lot more than that because I don't think the Blue Jays deserve one right now. Maybe I'll give one to the Flames, just to see what would happen in Calgary, see what the city would be like, because I feel like that'd be pretty cool. Obviously, I don't watch a ton of hockey, but the atmosphere in the city, I would assume, would be insane. And then maybe that would be before the Oilers win one, so then they get to hold that over the Oilers' heads, and then that's one more thing that we can cheer about. So. Yeah, I'll say that. I'll give 1 more to the Flames.
Okay.
I can go quickly because I didn't really think that deep. 2 for the Steelers because they haven't won one in a while. 2 for the Canadians. Again, haven't won one in a while. Long time. And then I'm going to give 1 to the Raptors just because they've won one more recently. So.
Fair.
What was that? Didn't think too deeply. Kind of just right away thought. And I was like, I'm going with this.
For me, I'm keeping myself humble because I've had some success with my teams. I'm gonna take the next year off. Nobody gets a chip. Raptors need 1 more year to build on it. So They don't win. Patriots don't win. They need a year as well. And then I'm going 2 straight for the Raptors, 2 straight for the Pats. But I'm only giving out 4 because I've gotten my wins in my lifetime.
That's so nice of you. Are you going to donate your extra championship somewhere else, or are you just giving out 4?
No, I'm just giving out 4.
Fair.
5 is too many. I feel like I get cocky. And I think if you win 5 straight years in a row, that's all you're going to be used to, and it's inevitably going to go downhill. And that descent would just be like soul crushing.
Or you also just get labeled a bandwagoner, probably.
Yeah.
Well, you're too humble. I would have like embraced it and been like,
Oh yeah.
but I'm taking our evil empire, the Patriots, to the next. I'm giving them all 5.
Drake May is the next GOAT.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I do the same
I'm
thing.
gonna wait till Bailey Zappi gets cut, and then
And then you can start handing them out. Okay.
Yeah.
I see that. I was gonna say I did have to have a lot of restraints, and I'll just give 5 directly to Seattle. Because Toronto's won one recently. I don't think the Blue Jays deserve one, and I would maybe space it out every other year, because it just stretched 5 rings out over 10 years. I think would mean more than 5 back to back to back. Although maybe I would just take 5 back to back to back. I don't know.
that would be.
But in this hypothetical,
I think I do.
Very stretch of life.
I think I would do 3 in a row and then skip a year.
okay, yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I did have to sit there and consider for a moment to not just give everything to Seattle immediately.
Mm-hmm.
For mine, like I gave 2 to Vegas and 2 to Seattle. I'd want them both to be back to back because I think that is such an impressive feat to do it, to win it one year, and then usually like in football and hockey, when you win, it hurts to win. Like you're pretty beat up at the end of it, so to do it the next year and go back to back is such an impressive feat that, yeah, that's how I would space them out.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I got another one. Okay, a championship. I got to change mine. In the 10-year span, I would say it would be. I think I'm going to take one away from the Steelers. I think it'd be pretty cool to see Canada win the World Cup.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point actually.
That would be pretty cool.
That's a good.
Win the World Cup.
Just because you said that, I'm giving up my humble ambitions. Team Canada's winning gold for basketball this Olympics.
There we go. That's a good pick too.
You can do that.
I'm not humble anymore.
I don't think we need to worry about Canada's hockey team. Like I have more faith in them than any other Olympic team that they could just win just without us having to give them one. And they've won a lot. So
yeah, even if our hockey doesn't win, like you said, they've won a lot. So at this point, and at this point,
for hockey, so it's fine.
Like when Czechia won the World Hockey Championships a couple weeks ago, I don't know if you guys saw, but it was crazy the celebration that they had in Canada. It's like, oh great, they won.
Oh, we won again. Cool.
Yeah.
People don't care when Canada wins gold in hockey. People care more when they lose.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fair. The expectations for them are so high. Yeah.
I also think with the World Cup being in Canada next time, that would be pretty wild.
A World Cup win would be really cool.
I think it's just because it's the biggest watched sporting event every 4 years by a considerable margin.
Yeah.
It would be really cool to see that, and because it's in Canada and it's within that 10-year time frame, I'm okay with the Steelers only having one.
Yeah, that's fair. And I'd say that Will, you picking Canada to win the world basketball. I think if they could beat this like America super team for a gold medal, that would also be really funny.
Yeah,
it'd be great. It'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. Is that it for today then?
I think so.
I don't have anything else.
I think I'm good.
Yeah.
Hey, well, the show keeps on rolling. Tune back in next week to the Armchair Athletes. We'll have reviews of the Stanley Cup Finals, the NBA Finals, and then hopefully no other NFL player drops a sad divorce music video again.
We'll be back to review Darren Waller's album.
Oh no.
0 out of 10 preemptively.
Yeah,
No reviewing needed.
it's a hard 0.
But yeah, tune back in next week. Thank you for tuning in to today's show.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.